Okay, so welcome back. Now, in this example I'm going to do for you, this is where you're going to have to set up a system of equations because it's not always going to be given to you. Okay, so one is being able to solve a system of three equations with three unknowns algebraically, but it's another thing to read a problem and then set it up. So I'm going to read a problem to you, and then we're going to go through and we're going to set up the system of three equations with three unknowns based on what they tell us in the problem. Okay, and this is where you have to read the problem carefully and to decipher what is going on. Okay, so let's start. In this problem it says there are three voltages, E1, E2, and E3, where E3 is 3 times E1. Okay, there's our first equation. It says E3 is 3 times E1. Is means equals, so E3 equals 3 times E1. So that means we have this one. E3 equals 3 times E1. So there's one equation that they give us. Okay, let's continue. Now it says, these three voltages, E1, E2, and E3, where E3 is 3 times E1, are in series with the same polarity and have the same total voltage of 85 megavolts. Okay, so they are in series. Okay, that means they're right along with each other. And the voltages are the same. Okay, so the total voltage is 85 megavolts. Or those, no, I'm sorry, those are millivolts, 85 millivolts. Okay, so they're in series and they have the same polarity, which means that they're going the same direction. And so the total voltage is 85 millivolts. So what do? We have the total millivolts. So E1 plus E2 plus E3 equals 85. Okay, now let's continue reading. It says if E2 is reversed in polarity, the voltage is 35 millivolts. That means if E2 is reversed, so we're going to change this to plus to negative. So E1 minus E2 plus E3 is equal to 35 millivolts. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to use these equations to find the three voltages. Okay. Well, we've got to reduce to two equations with two unknowns. Well, we've got E3 is equal to 3E1, right? So let's set this up. Let's set this up with as a system of three equations, three unknowns, and let's set this up the way we did before. So we want the constants on one side and all the variables on the other side. So we're going to rewrite this one as E1 minus, E3. Minus 3 times E1 equals 0. Okay, so let's line this up. Let's do this. So it'd be minus 3E1 like that. Okay, just so that all the variables line up. Okay, now we can get rid of E2 easily here, right? We got E1 and E3. For these two, we can add these two equations here easily and get rid of E2 because they're opposite signs. So let's do that. So over here, let's rewrite. We get negative 3E1 plus E3 equals 0. And then if we add these two, what do we get? If we add these two, we get 2E1. These two go away, and we get plus 2E3 equals what? 120. And so now let's put this over here. So we get 2 E1 plus 2 E3 equals 120. And so now let's multiply the top one by negative 2 and get rid of the E3s. So we're going to multiply this by negative 2. And what do we get? Well, let's rewrite them down here. So we get 6E1 minus 2E3 equal to 0. And then we get 2E1 plus 2E3 equals 120. Now if we add these, the E3s go away. We get 8E1 equals 120. We divide both sides by 8. And we get E1 equals what? Is that right? 15 millivolts? Okay. So that's E1. So we solve for E1. So now guess what? We get to back substitute and find the other ones. Okay, so now we found E1. Well, now we can go back and solve for E3, right? So let's do that. So we got E1 is 15 millivolts. Okay, so we got E1 is equal to 15 millivolts. So now let's plug in here and find E3. Well, that means negative 3 times 15 plus E3 equals 0. So that means E3, right, equals 45 millivolts, right? Because this becomes negative 45 plus E3 equal to 0, right? And then you just add 45 to both sides. So far we've got two of them. So we found E1 and we found E3. Now what we could do is we can put in E1 and E3 in either one of these two equations. Doesn't matter which one, and solve for E2. So let's just do the first one, right? So let's do the second one here. So we've got E1 plus E2 plus E3 equals 85. Okay, so then we just plug in. So this is 15 plus E2 plus 45 equals 85. Well, 45 and 15 equals 60, right? So we get E2 plus 60 equals 85, and so then E2 equals 25 millivolts. And we're done. And that's how you do it. Okay, same process each time. The only difference is we had to come up with the three equations with three unknowns based on the information given us to in the problem. Okay, so make sure you read the problem carefully, write out the equations correctly, and once you do that, then it's just a matter of just making sure you do the algebra without making any mistakes. Okay? Take care.